AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio.
That's right.
Hour 2, off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. AFR, presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. I'm Matt.
This is Shaq O'Neal, and I hate Matt.
Paul O'Neal.
They're chanting Paul O'Neal's name. Paul O'Neal.
Muso.
I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world.
You heard him say it, Paulie. You heard him say it, didn't you? Finally admits it after all these years. And Mr. Toby Tomplay. All right, we're here. Glad you are as well. Get out there and make it a good. We're having some network issues, and our some of our drops and all this stuff are kind of going in and out as they're working on it. But engineers are on, so we apologize for the inconvenience. But nonetheless, the show goes on, and we're happy to be here. Happy to have Andy Martin, head coach of the U-High Cubs, in studio with us. Big day for his biggest prospect, Lamar Brown, signing day, or actually not signing day, his announcement day, Thursday there at U-High's campus. Thanks for coming in, man. How are you?
Thanks for having me. It's been a while.
Yeah, no, we always appreciate you when you can take the call. I would imagine it's a pretty busy 24, 48-hour period for you right now. Can you kind of sum up what this is like, especially being in a program that regularly has highly recruited guys, but this one just feels a little different?
Yeah, it's been very busy the last couple weeks. It's not nearly as busy as it is for Lamar right now, but I'm getting phone calls, things like that. But this is going to be a neat deal. We've had a lot of high-profile recruits. We've had a lot of people come through the halls and do their commitments and all that, but never in the situation we're going to have tomorrow. So it's a little bit different situation.
It's going to be live on ESPN2. So how did that come about?
So the producer reached out to Lamar, then reached out to me to see if it would be possible for us to do it at our school. And he said that there was he was trying to work through ESPN. He couldn't guarantee it, but sometimes they like doing that, and he's number one recruit, so they figured it might have a chance. And he calls me the next day and said, yeah, if y'all want to do it, it's on. We had originally scheduled for 10. He said, if you can move it to 12:15, we'll cut into Sports Center and do it. And I said, well, I think we can figure that out.
Yeah. So 12:15, it'll be where is it?
At the at our gym.
In the gym? Is it a thing where it's open to the public where people just, I realize that it's still just a high school campus. So I don't think people just roll up on high school campuses all the time. But is it something that people are invited to attend?
Yeah, people are invited to attend. We're gonna have the gates open so people can walk in and come in there and enjoy watching him do his thing.
Yeah. So Lamar will make his announcement on Thursday at 12:15. It'll be live on ESPN2. But if you want to attend there on the U-High campus, you can. How do you think Lamar has? He's sat in the chair you're in right now. He's been in studio. He's done a ton of media. Knowing the young man, how do you think he's done throughout this entire process?
I think he's done a good job. I think what a lot of people have to understand is we're talking about high school kids, and I think some people lose track of that and lose the focus on that. But it's a high school kid, and he's had a good time with it. He wanted to take his visits, and I told him, go take your visits. Go see places that you may never see again.
Yeah.
Why not go to L.A. and see USC? Why not go to Miami and see what's down there? Any kid that age would love to go do that. So I think handling the process has been very mature in everything he's been doing, talking to the coaches, doing all the things he had to do. I think, and we've had people go through it before, and I think he's handling it really well.
What about some of those? Would you compare it to anybody that you've had come through before?
Keelan was a very high-profile prospect, and obviously Dylan was very big back in the day, and kind of everything that went on with that. But I think Lamar's a little bit different. I think Dylan was the number one recruit at the time. Lamar's number one recruit on some boards, and so it's a little bit different in that sense from Keelan. But Keelan is very high-profile also. Yeah.
Andy Martin's in studio with us. U-High head coach Lamar Brown will make his announcement on Thursday. Do you know Has he told you?
I do not know. We're gonna, we've talked a couple times, and I said, let me know either tonight or tomorrow morning, and then we'll.
Oh, so you'll know before the announcement.
I'll know before the announcement.
Yeah.
He's doing things the right way. He wants to let the coaches know and all that type of stuff.
Smart.
So yeah, he'll let me know tomorrow or tonight, one or the other.
Let's talk a little bit about Lamar, the player. And I think that maybe the most interesting thing is that for a long time, Andy, he was recruited as like the number one interior offensive lineman. And then he was sitting on the show and we're just walking through, all the stuff. And he basically says, no, LSU's recruiting me. I want to go play for Kevin Peoples and be an end. I'm like, you would do what now? How do you use him?
So he's been, as a freshman, he played a lot more defense and offense for us. Towards the end of the year, he started on offense. We saw a need for it. And sophomore and junior year, it's been mainly offensive line with him rotating on the defensive line. And that would be again this year. He's our anchor on the offensive line. He's our best offensive line we have. And he does a great job, not only just with his play on the field, but there was a communication with the young guys around him. He does a really good job of doing all those things. And so, I think we're going to use him as one of our best offensive linemen. He'll come in and play as much defense as he can.
Yeah. How do you, when you try to project him, do you think he projects? So let me ask it this way. Is the defensive line piece just because that's what he feels more comfortable doing, that he wants to do?
I think it's something that he really wants to do, and he's very. He is being recruited as an athlete because he's an athlete. He's almost 6'5", he's 300 pounds, and we're going to run our 40s next week, and he's going to pop a very good time. And he runs in our skill group with our second group of skill guys, and that's where he chooses to run because he wants to run there and get faster and do all the things he does. So, I think he would be a very good offensive lineman also. I think he'd go in and play guard or play center, and I think he's also going to be doing on defense. He's going to be a very powerful defensive lineman. His feet are so good. He's so athletic down there, and he's got great leverage for a guy that big, and I think he's going to disrupt a lot of things.
I want to go a little deeper there because of you by trade are a defensive guy, defensive coordinator. Go a little deeper, if you would, on Lamar as because that's sometimes you think, he's 6'5", 300 pounds. I'm thinking, wouldn't that be an interior player? Why does it make more sense for him to play out on the edge?
Well, it just depends on what they're trying to do with him. I think they're gonna figure out the best way to work with him. And we'll continue to see what his body does too. If he keeps getting bigger to where he's 330 pounds, but you can look at him right now. He's 300 pounds, and you couldn't tell. He holds his weight and carries his weight so well that when you tell him people he's 300 pounds, like I don't see it. So I think that helps with it. His athleticism is off the chart. And so whether they want to put him on the strong side and try to stop that run and disrupt the pass rush, the quarterback, all that type of stuff, and he can definitely do that. And so I think whether it ends up staying outside, whether it goes down in, whatever the plan is for him long term, he's going to do well.
Give me an example of when you see that athleticism, that off the charts athleticism.
When he's doing, when he's just running, when you see him running with our skill guys and going to cut, he goes to make cuts and things like that. But you turn on his film, and I've had a couple coaches talk to me about his film, just talk about him getting out on the edge and being able to block in that screen game. For a big lineman getting out there, sometimes they can't catch those little defensive backs. He plants a lot of those guys, and he just does a good job of getting out there and just being so athletic. And then also you got tackles sometimes that can be a little stiff, and he gets in there and he's just so quick past them. So there's many things that he shows, just his athleticism.
Andy Martin's with us, U-High head coach. Lamar Brown will make his commitment on Thursday there at U-High's campus. Of course, it's always been talked about that U-High is on LSU's campus. And we talked just a bit ago about Keelan and Dylan. One ended up at LSU, one didn't. Jordan Gilbert didn't and then came back. It's interesting with the U-High guys because some make that decision that they want to play the place where they've been for so long, and some want to go do something different, which teach their own. But what type of conversation do you have with prospects like Lamar or any of these guys who have that decision to make? Do they continue to play college football on the same campus where they played high school?
I think for a lot of them, it's just where's the best fit for them. And some of the guys that have left, it may have been not always their choice. Sometimes maybe a school might have gotten off of them, come on them, those type of things. But in this case, there's no doubt that LSU's recruiting very hard. A&M's recruiting very hard. They've both done a great job recruiting him. And so, I think Lamar's got a couple really good options. And obviously, if he stays home, he stays on campus what he's used to, and there's nothing wrong with that.
How do you and I think one of the things that maybe for the audience that maybe aren't familiar is the head high school coach, you have a lot of interactions with the college recruiters. They're on campus. How often is a college coach on your campus?
So they have their time periods. January, December to January is a big time, and then it starts again in the spring when they come out. And so those two times, it's a good bit. And then throughout the season, they can come every once in a while and and come to visit. But you really start to see it in January, and you really see it when spring ball starts. And so it's every day. Lots of guys come in, and it's neat. You get to meet a lot of people and see big-time schools come on campus.
Yeah, so they rely very heavily on coaches being honest with them, telling them about the player, learning more, all that situation. How do you think LSU has done recruiting Lamar?
Oh, they've done an outstanding job. I mean, they were the first ones to offer him as a freshman. They're in constant contact with him. I think that, they've had a few coaches on him at different times, and I think they put themselves in a good position, for Lamar to make a decision. Yeah.
So when he was a freshman, that was still under the previous staff with Coach Ogeron. So it's been a variety of different coaches that have recruited him. Can you kind of take me through that? Like, who has spent the most time with him?
I think, Coach Frank Wilson spent probably the most amount of time with him early on, with the recruitment. I think Coach Sloan spent a lot of time talking to him, and then Coach Peoples has obviously been a big part of his recruitment, especially when the shift became made to the defense side of the ball. So I think those have been the three biggest. Coach Davis was in it before when it was kind of the offensive part, and then whenever it switched over, it became Coach Peoples. But I think the consistent one has been Coach Wilson the entire time.
Yeah. Boy, Frank Wilson's as good as they come in the game when it comes to recruiting. We're going to grab a quick break. Good to stay for another segment?
Yep, I'm
okay,
good.
Andy Martin's with us, U High head coach. Lamar Brown's going to make his announcement on Thursday. Good enough to have Coach Martin in studio with us. So let's knock out a quick break. Our Hump Day shows are brought to you by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Visit yourgoodwood.com, yourgoodwood.com. We'll knock out a break. We'll continue on AFR.
AFR.
Brought to you by the Watermark and the Renaissance Hotel, two amazing hotel properties in Baton Rouge. Watermark downtown, Renaissance Southtown. Southtown's right there on Blue Bonnet. Of course, right across from the Mall of Louisiana and Perkins Row. Actually, my buddy Joe Lisi, who has been a good friend of the show for a lot of years, in town. His daughter is enrolling as a freshman at LSU. He's there dropping her off for orientation today. We had lunch. He was driving back. Told me staying right there at the Renaissance Hotel here in Baton Rouge. So from out of town, you have friends, relatives coming in town. Maybe you're starting to think about LSU football games for the fall. If you're traveling into Baton Rouge, book those reservations now for the Renaissance. Remember, the Friday before every home game, the LSU football team stays at Renaissance Baton Rouge. So you want to stay where the Tigers stay, you could stay at Renaissance Baton Rouge the Friday before every LSU game this year. Of course, the Watermark downtown as well. It's Watermark and Renaissance Baton Rouge. I have a little issue with our, as we mentioned, our network. Some things just aren't playing there. So we get to roll along through, man. Andy Martin's in studio with us, U High head football coach, as Lamar Brown set to make his announcement on Thursday. 12:15 Central Time there on the U High campus. It will be open to the public, so if you want to attend, you could certainly do that. You expect to have a lot of students there?
I think so. I think we'll have our football team will be there and kind of supporting him and doing all that. And I think we'll have students there, and it's kind of getting out now, especially now that it's people know it's ESPN 2. It's going to be, so I think we'll have a few more people than we normally would have.
Yeah, it's interesting too because just school's out. Like if it were a school day. Yeah. I mean, you could probably, right, you could do some kind of a school assembly, put everybody in the gym, he makes the announcement, it's cool. But, like, I guess nobody's on campus right now, except, like, maybe the slackers like me that would have to go to summer school, right? Something like that. We'll talk a little bit about Lamar, the person as well, because we could put on, like you talked, we could look at the highlights and the film and all that stuff of Lamar, the football player. But what about Lamar Brown, the person? What's it like coaching that young man?
He is a very coachable player. Number one, he's just a good kid. I mean, like really, really good kid. I mean, he takes the coaching. He pretty quiet if you kind of just don't know him. But then his teammates get to know him, and once you get to know him and all that type of stuff. But what I love about him is being such a good player. You're going to see him working the hardest, which is what you want, and you try to preach on all your teams. Is if you can get your best guys working the hardest, you're going to have a special team. He's one of our hardest workers. I love to watch him interact with the younger guys. The guys attract to him. They navigate to him, and watching him work with the younger linemen, watching him, the patience that he has, talking to them, getting them up to speed, all those type of things are the little things that he has, little intangibles that he has that makes him a special player.
Is that common with your best players?
It can be. We've had it sometimes. Sometimes we haven't. You know. So I think he's one of the ones that when you do get him and you get a talent like that and a guy that's gonna set the example, gonna be the guy that's working the hardest, gonna be the guy that's doing things the right way on and off the field. You want to definitely point that out because you want young guys trying to emulate that.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, because you were talking about how he's been an anchor for the Cubs on the offensive line. 'Cause it's where you need him. But he wants to play defense, which is what he's projecting at the next level. I'd imagine that's got to be difficult for a guy like that. Maybe typically, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but it would stand to reason, like, if you're a guy like that's that highly recruited, you do what you want to do, and if you want to play defense, you play defense. So what were those conversations like with him to play offensive line when he is projecting himself on the defensive side?
That's one of the biggest things that shows about his character because he's a team first guy, and he knows that we got a couple guys that'll be doing that this year that are going to be offensive linemen for us, and one kid's committed to another school on the defense. He's going to start an offensive line, and he's been the example for that. That's helped out with that because guys understand that. Look, we got to do what's best for the team, and for us. To be successful, he's going to have to play a lot of ball on offense. And then when he's conditioned enough, when that heat breaks a little bit and we can get as many reps as we can out of him on defense.
Is it tempting as a defensive guy to be like, man, I'd love to get 60 snaps on the defensive side of the ball out of him?
I'd love to have that. Yeah. That would definitely be awesome. But we need him on both. And so, we try to – I think we have a pretty good system in what we do and trying to get him on the field on both sides of the ball and trying to monitor him throughout the game as to – all right, are you starting to feel a little bit? All right, we'll back off some reps on defense and kind of make sure that you can go on offense.
Do you have a comp for Lamar? I know people always ask that question, but just when you look at the body style and the style of play,
I really don't. I don't know. I don't know where to compare him because so much of what I see on him is offensive line stuff, and kind of the way he's moving. He's somebody that we haven't had on our campus, somebody that athletic, that size. We've had Jaqueline, who was a very good player for us, and he was an outstanding defensive lineman for us. But a guy this versatile that can do the offense, can do the defense, can do it, pretty much anything you ask him to do. It's a very rarity.
It's funny you mentioned Jaqueline, of course, Jaqueline Roy, and we mentioned guys like Keelan and Jordan Gilbert, who's there now. And over the years, there's been so many U-High guys who've come to LSU, but I feel like sometimes we focus on the guys that don't come. Now, you also mentioned not everybody's had a committable offer. Right. Like, look, I'm not saying Jordan Clark's a great example of that. Jordan went to Arizona State, finished his career at Notre Dame. When he was coming out, he wasn't a. You tell me if I'm wrong, but my understanding talking to RC was that Jordan didn't have a committable offer to LSU.
Right.
So you say, well, why didn't that kid go to LSU? Well, he didn't have the option to go to LSU. But I mean, do you see that a little bit about maybe sometimes the perception about the U-High guys that choose not to go to LSU?
Oh, yeah, I see it all the time. I mean, people are always saying things about U-High guys are always going to go somewhere else. They're not going to choose LSU. They've been on the campus all their life, and they're going somewhere else, which I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that's just a misconception because you see a couple big guys that did leave. And like I said, there's been guys that did leave, the Christian Harrises, even the Jordan Gilberts, not necessarily the committable offer for LSU in the beginning, and so I think that's a misconception. I'm
glad you brought up Jordan because I wrote down I wanted to ask you about both Jordan and Keelan as well. That's another thing about Jordan that I think people probably don't realize. Like, he basically played with one arm last year.
Exactly.
He dislocated. For those who don't know, he dislocated his shoulder, and he played the rest of the season with a harness and basically played with one arm, and it was rough. But I respect tremendously the fact that he did it. Do you talk to Jordan much?
Oh, we talk a good bit. He actually interned with us in the spring, so we got to see him a lot.
You think he's a future coach? Is that something he wants to do, or he's just kind of trying it out?
He had to do it for a class, but he did a great job with us. I tell you what, he could do a really good job. He had a great just interaction with the kids and all that type of stuff. He was injured, so he kind of had the brace on and all that, and he finally got out of it as we get going. But I talked to Jordan a good bit.
Yeah, I mean, he missed spring as he was recovering from shoulder surgery. So, look, everyone knows safety was a struggle for LSU a year ago. It was probably the weakest spot on the defense, but that was you had a safety playing with one arm. That's a big reason why. But when he is healthy and right, what do you think an expectation is for Jordan this year?
I think Jordan's gonna have a great year. I really do. Even talking to their coach, stuff like that, and he did this at U-High too. He was such a good leader. He really was. He was a great leader on the field. He knew the game. He knew how to position everybody and get everybody in the right spots. And talking to the coaches and Coach Baker over there, Jordan's doing the same thing, and that's what they love about him. They love his leadership. They love what he does, and he's played a lot of football. He played a lot of football at A&M. He's played a lot of football at LSU. I can't wait to see him this year healthy.
Yeah. Do you think is he more strong or free?
I think he's more free. I think he's very good with the ball in the air when he can use his arms and do all those type of things. But he'll come up and make a tackle also.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see that position group this year. I don't know how much you get to watch the Tigers, but just to have depth there it will be so interesting. Just with the two transfers they brought in, Jordan being healthy, Deshaun Spears. Did you ever play against Spears, by the way?
I don't know if he was on the team when we were young. We played Denham, but it was a while back, so I don't think he was there yet.
Okay. I mean, I know you get to see a lot of the guys in the Baton Rouge area, and that was another big-time prospect who went through some growing pains as a freshman, but you could see all just oozing the ability there, what it's going to look like at safety. And then Keelan's an interesting one as well, because, man, he's like, everyone's known Keelan since he was in 8th grade. Maybe even younger than that because he was Dylan's brother. But he told me point blank that they see him as the star position. Do you think that tracks?
I think it does. I think it fits very well for him. He's going to do that again. Another great athlete, another guy that can play in space, another guy that if you need him to drop back and do that type of things, or if you need him at the line of scrimmage, he can do whatever he needs to do.
What stands out about Keelan's game, a little maybe more elaborative of what you just talked about when you look at Keelan the player?
I think he diagnoses plays pretty quickly. So if it's time to get to the football, whether it's a run, he's going to get up there pretty quickly. He uses his hands very well, and just he's got that burst, that speed burst that allows him to get there. In the passing game, again, he takes up a lot of space. He's a wide, rangy kid, and just does a good job.
Do you think he's better inside or outside?
I think he can do both. I think probably, right now until he can figure, I think the size can be seeing what he does. I think he's better outside, but I think he could definitely put a little bit more weight on there and come on the inside.
Yeah, this is maybe just a deeper football convo with a guy who knows a ton about defensive football. Like, is this just this sort of like hybrid player at linebacker just what we're seeing in the evolution of the game? I mean, like, if you just think of the last 20 years that you've been coaching, how that position in particular has evolved?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, you're seeing it even now when you're looking at the NFL. I mean, those are the guys. You're seeing the athletic linebackers now. You're not seeing the squattier guys, and I think that's definitely the evolution of the game because you're trying to keep up with the offenses. Offenses are going so fast, and they're spreading you out and doing this and the other. If you got guys that can't run, and it's not just about plugging holes up anymore. It's not handling the wham anymore, and trying to splat that. How about that, huh?
Many fullbacks run right into my back when we're in wham plays.
That's not really what they're looking for anymore. It's a lot of different things. So you need a guy that can handle the RPO stuff, get out there in space, but also a guy that can make the tackles in the box.
Yeah. Probably part of the reason why I have such bad back issues right now. Fullback Adam Aycock running straight into my back.
I know.
Yes. I mean, he's still yoked. It's like we're all 43 years old and he's still incredibly built. Andy Martin's in studio with us. Lamar Brown's going to make his commitment tomorrow. When you look at the rest of your roster for 2025 with the Cubs, how are they looking? I know Emil's going to be. I'll ask you about Emil in a second as well, but how are you looking for 25?
We're very excited. We had a kid commit to UL the other day at defensive end, Jordan Pinnock, and we have a defensive back that committed to the Naval Academy.
Nice.
Which will be our third year in a row of having a guy at the Naval Academy, which I love. I love guys going to the Naval Academy. But other than that, we got some younger guys that are some prospects, but I think we just have a good nucleus. Our senior class is doing a great job of leading, and we're very excited for the season.
I mentioned Emil. It's, of course, Emil Picarella, who transferred in. You had him for 2 years, right?
2 years, yep.
So you had Emil for 2. Emil was in studio. Great young, personable guy, but also a guy, if you don't remember his recruitment, early in his high school career, he was at one point he was one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country for his class. And for whatever reason last year, some of the ratings, the star ratings, whatever, dipped. Maybe you can speak to that. I really don't know. So he's at LSU now as a preferred walk-on in a class where they didn't take a scholarship quarterback. Can you just give us sort of like the thumbnail on Emil?
Yeah, I think Emil got caught in that deal of recruitment with the transfer portal. Guys at different schools, they wanted to take a guy that was in the transfer portal and pull him out. And Emil can play football. Emil's got a plus arm. He makes good decisions. He did a really good job running our offense. Came in and learned it right away. Came in and became a leader right away and just did a great job for us.
Is that one? That's interesting too. And I think now that I'm thinking of it, Emil and I did talk about that a little bit because college. Look at LSU a year ago with AJ Swan is a good example of that. They brought in a backup who had SEC experience. Did it again this year with Michael Van Buren.
Right.
And so sometimes the guy that quote unquote loses in that situation is the high school quarterback who maybe isn't the 5-star blue chip that doesn't get that opportunity. So did you all ever have a conversation about him maybe going somewhere else to start his career and then getting in the portal looking for that big-time opportunity?
He looked at different places and different things, but the bottom line is, I think in his heart he wanted to be an LSU Tiger. I mean, like that was his deal, and I think he's going to do a good job of learning and continue to progress.
Yeah. It's going to be fascinating to watch how this all plays out, just in this whole new era and evolution of recruiting, be it high school or portal. Do you have any feeling one way or another on just on the state of recruitment with NIL and rev share and portal and all the stuff, how it goes? I mean, you see these guys every day.
Yeah, it's changed a lot of stuff. I think, the transfer portal is the thing that's really changed the high school recruiting. That's a lot of coaches they say they want to keep getting some high school guys, but everyone wants to win right away. If they can pluck a guy from some of these smaller schools, from an SEC school that's not playing, and put him in there right away, well, then that's what they're going to do. And a lot of our guys, that's where they would go. They go to a smaller school, and they would kind of get developed there. And so we're kind of seeing a change there. But we'll see. I think guys are getting opportunities. I can tell you this: I think schools that never thought they would get some of these guys are now getting guys that they were like, oh, we didn't think we'd get him. And so I think that's been a big thing for some of the smaller schools, and they know that you may only get him for 1 or 2 years, but we're going to use everything we can for 1 or 2 years with him.
That's interesting. Do you think that's a good thing?
Look, I think I tell our guys that are maybe going to a smaller school, that dream of going to a bigger school, I tell them, look, go to the school and get some film and do your best, and then use the system for what it is. You know what I mean? Like if that's what it is, where you can go out and do really well there, and if you want to move up and somebody will take you, then go for it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, your point's a good one. Like, look, the smaller schools are benefiting from that tremendously. Like, if you get it for a year or two, use it to your – I remember having that conversation with Will Wade. I was sitting with Will in Lake Charles a couple of years ago, and he said they were recruiting that to say, we'll take the one-year guy, make him all conference, set him off to a Power 5, and we'll recruit the next guy, say, come here for 1 year. We'll take you for 1 year. We'll let you do this, and then go get your bag and go play for, or whatever, however it goes. I mean, it is interesting to think of it that way, because a lot of times we might be conditioned to think in terms of the opportunity that isn't there at the Power 5 immediately, but maybe it is that smaller school opportunity that benefits everybody.
Yeah.
Fascinating time. One thing's for certain. Lamar Brown go wherever he wants. Like, whatever hat he puts on Thursday, they're going to be thrilled to have him. I know a lot of people here are biased, hoping it's a purple, gold, white hat, whatever it may be. I don't want to see no maroon. I want to see no maroon at the U-High Gym tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. Coach Andy Martin, I mean, thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate the time as always.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me.
Yep, it's our pleasure. Big day. Lamar Brown will make his announcement. Long anticipated. Actually, are you glad he's doing it now instead of like during the season or closer to December?
I am. I think it's going to take the pressure off and then just go play football.
Yeah. I think a lot of guys are making that decision now. It's probably the right thing, too.
Yeah.
All right, we appreciate you for coming in. Andy Martin, it's after further review. We'll knock out a quick break, and we'll continue here. Ari Temkin from who's covered the Big 12 for a lot of years, set to join us next. We'll talk about Big 12 Media Days. It's AFR.
AFR.
We're brought to you by Clegg's Nursery with 4 locations in the greater Baton Rouge area: Seagan near Airline, LA 16 in Dedham, Mid-City on Don Moore, and the Garden Center on Greenwell Springs. We tell you every single day to buy local and shop local. I got my son's 11th birthday party on Saturday. Really looking forward to Drew's party. You know, one of the stops we got to make, Clegg's Nursery. You want to freshen up those patio pots, flower beds, beautify the exterior spaces. Clegg's has the best selection, flowers and plants and trees and shrubs, whatever you're looking for. But also, if you need to get rid of the unwanted pests, wasp spray, the anthill killer. I tell you all the time about the Aeon mosquito barrier. This thing is like $30. It's the size of a track baton. You fill it with water with the granules in it. You shake it up, hang it on the property line. You're done for 90 days at a time with mosquitoes. Check it out. It's the Aeon mosquito barrier. It's over at Clegg's Nursery. Any of the 4 locations. Buy local, shop local. Tell them Matt sent you to Clegg's Nursery.
After further review, presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Visit yourgoodwood.com.
I appreciate Andy Martin for hanging out with us here for a couple of segments. Big day for LSU tomorrow. Lamar Brown making his announcement. Looks like it'll be LSU or Texas A&M. That's the assumption. I mean, Lamar sat in our studio however many months ago that was, said point blank that LSU is the team to beat, always going to be hard to beat. I think, home is sort of where the heart is for some of these guys. And if you want to be If you want to be at LSU, you pick LSU, and if not, then you're going to go out of state. But I think ultimately Lamar's a guy that with the option to go to LSU, stay in Baton Rouge, or leave the state. I think he stays at LSU. But I don't have any inside knowledge. I don't have any intel. Just what Lamar has said here, reading the tea leaves, and we'll see how it all plays out. All right, I'm glad to have you aboard with us here. Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. Good enough to join us here for a couple of minutes here as Big 12 Media Days rolls along. Yo, man, how are you?
To be honest with you, man, I'm brain dead.
Why are you brain dead?
I mean, look, we're very lucky and blessed to do what we do, but these media days are tough. This is like as close to digging ditches as we do in this industry, especially if you cover the entire league.
Yeah, man.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's 2 days of wall-to-wall coaches, players, and, yeah, it's a lot.
Hey, man,
I'm not complaining, but I'm brain dead.
4 days. Bro, 4 days of SEC Media Days. Like, dog, it is, you're right. It's a grind. You're right. Not complaining. We're not digging ditches. But, yeah, it's a mental grind to get through. One of those days where you got to, like, remind yourself to eat. So what was I know from the outside looking in what the storylines were that we all seem to hear, but being there in the belly of the beast the past couple of days, what were the storylines that dominated the conversation?
We coming.
Okay.
The Big 12 is coming. I think this league is the best quarterbacks collectively in the country this year. With all due respect to Garrett Nussmeier, who's certainly in that conversation. And then I think from an offensive line perspective, and that's really, to me, the biggest substantive piece to this league, is top to bottom, this league has a lot of good offensive lines. Utah has 2 first-round picks and arguably a top 10 pick at left tackle, but 2 first-round picks at both tackle spots. When I look at this league, I think there are 5 teams that are very good up front on both lines of scrimmage. And I think everybody else is at least really good on either offensive or defensive lines. And that's been the key. Like, the key is the SEC and the Big Ten have been so dominant, particularly because of how good they've been up front. A bunch of NFL players up front. It's not a secret, Like, that's what it's been, and that's why they've been so good and dominant. And I think the Big 12 this year in particular is really good on its offensive and defensive lines. It's as good as it's ever been. And I do think that NIL and the transfer portal has helped the Big 12 in that regard, too.
Yeah. It's funny how, not funny, haha, just interesting maybe is a better word, how a program like Texas Tech, which has resources, is able to use them, and you see the dividends. It's not the same conference, but SMU is maybe a similar comp. I'm interested that you said you think the Big 12 is the best quarterback league. Peel back the layers of the onion there a little bit more for us, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a league that's had a lot of good quarterbacks over the years. But when you look at, all right, Sawyer Robertson, to me, I picked him as the player of the year in the Big 12 this year. I picked Baylor to win the Big 12 this year.
Okay.
Because Sawyer Robertson, 6'4", 215 pounds, was an absolute tank last year. He's got a big arm. In fact, we had Devin Gardner on our show today, and he compared him to Josh Allen. He's probably the most underrated quarterback in college football heading into this season. Obviously, Sam Levitt is probably the opposite end of the spectrum. He's the guy that I think most people would refer to when talking about the Big 12 strength of the quarterback position. A guy that if he lives up to the hype this year could be a top 10 pick in next year's NFL draft. So those are two. Josh Hoover is a very underrated player who threw for nearly 4,000 yards at TCU last year and set records for TCU. But they had no running game whatsoever, no defense, and so there was not much known about a guy like Josh Hoover. Rocco Becht, who's Anthony Becht's son, who to me, having watched Brock Purdy play in college, like Rocco Becht is a better college quarterback than Brock Purdy was. That's not to say anything about NFL careers. I'm just saying what I saw with Brock Purdy at Iowa State, really good quarterback. Rocco Becht is better, and he's elusive. So I like going through this. Avery Johnson is a guy that was a high 4-star for K-State. He's 58% completion percentage last year. That's not good enough. So, he's a guy that's looking for vast improvements. But here's a guy that, from a hype perspective, is certainly one of the guys you expect to be really good. Haven't even talked about Jalen Daniels yet, who, he was around for Jaden Daniels when he was in college. So, and Jalen, I think he's poised to have maybe his best year yet for Kansas. So, and, just, again, brain dead here, trying to go through the rest of these guys' league. There's a lot of talent here. There's a lot of potential here. And when you look at the other conferences, again, Garrett Nussmeier's if we're ranking the top 20, 25 quarterbacks in the country, it's not going to take very long before you get to Nussmeier, but I think the majority of those guys are going to be Big 12 quarterbacks.
I want to go pivot to Arizona State because they were a real surprise story. I mean, Ari, I don't remember but they were picked near the bottom of the league last year.
They were picked last.
They were picked dead last. Okay. We all know they make a playoff run. Is that an outlier, or is there another team this year in the Big 12 who might be able to make a similar move?
Honestly, Matt, I hope it's an outlier. The Big 12 cannot afford to continually have Arizona States. The Big 12, for it to get the national perception back on its side, it needs consistency at the top. Part of what makes the SEC so good, especially from a national perspective, is because you beat Alabama, that's a good win. You beat LSU in Baton Rouge, that's a good win. You beat Georgia, that's a good win. The Big 12 seemingly had that with Texas and Oklahoma, but hasn't had that yet. So we don't, with apologies to the national media, they don't know how to quantify good wins in the conference because basically the preseason expectations for this league were the inverse of what the reality was. The teams that were picked the top 5 of the conference last year finished bottom 5, except for K-State. And the teams that were picked, this is not a joke, teams that were picked bottom 5 of the league finished top 5. The only team that was there preseason was K-State. So it's a complete inverse. Yeah. That can't happen. That's why this league is viewed so negatively. It's why it's viewed as a league of parity, because it is. Yeah. The Big 12 doesn't want to saying league of parity. They want to talk about competitive balance. Okay, I don't care how you spit it. There's a reason why this league has been viewed as a league of parity. And that, again, for the league to get 2 bids to the college football playoff, which I think this year is very much possible based on some non-conference opponents that this league has, based on the quarterback situation we talked about, I think it's very possible this year. But it can't have Texas Tech have a bad year. It can't have Arizona State have a bad year. It can't have the teams that are expected to be towards the top of the conference have bad years this year, and can't have the bottom of the league, Houston, UCF, have good years. With all due respect to those programs, because that's what shifts the perception of this conference to being parity and not being very good.
That's interesting, Ari. I guess maybe just from a different perspective, I look and I say sometimes the SEC gets knocked as being just too top-heavy, maybe just being the handful of teams that have been so dominant, maybe doesn't have the depth in the conference. You disagree?
I mean, I can see why people would knock the conference for that, but that. How many teams have won national titles in the last 20 years? I mean, 3 out of the SEC.
Well, no, if you go back to 2005, you'd have.
Yeah,
LSU,
15 years.
LSU. Well, if you go further, I mean, LSU, Florida, Bama. If you go back further, from the BCS era, Tennessee obviously won a national championship as well.
All right,
Georgia.
So let's keep it for the sake of my narrative here. Let's keep it to the college football playoff.
Okay.
So that I can prove to be right.
So back to 14, then it's Georgia, Bama, LSU.
Georgia, Bama, LSU. And how many Big Ten teams?
Ohio State, Michigan, yeah.
So, it's 5 teams, right? So the rest of the SEC benefits from the work of 3 teams. The rest of the Big Ten benefits from the work of 2 teams. And that's, look at the preseason. You look at every year, I can tell you who the top 5, top 10 AP preseason teams are going to be in 2026. I can tell you who they're probably going to be in 2027 too.
You're right.
Those 5 teams. So, it's those 5 teams that lift up the strength of the rest of the conference. The Big 12 doesn't have that. So it's entertaining, but it's almost like isn't that cute? Look at them. They just beat up each other every week. It's adorable. As opposed to Alabama, LSU, Georgia, those places are viewed as very difficult places to play because they're so consistently good.
Yeah. Man, an Arizona State win over Texas would have been fascinating for how that narrative might have changed.
Here's another part to that. As you said this, Arizona State benefited a ton from losing to Texas. And it's really interesting you go back further because TCU losing in the national title the way they did to Georgia set them back and this conference back a long time. So it's funny how TCU beat Michigan that year and was the first playoff win for the Big 12 ever. Oklahoma never won a playoff game. Texas never won a playoff game. TCU was the first win ever. But yet Arizona State losing in their only playoff appearance had more benefit to the league than TCU winning a game and then getting smoked in the national title game. It's weird.
Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective because nobody even remembers the TCU. They beat Michigan. It was a fantastic game where they had a big lead, blew it, and then won. But yeah, you're right. People remember the national championship game. A couple more for you. Ari Temkin's with us at Ari Sports if you want to get him on Twitter. Big 12 Radio there on TuneIn. Obligatory Coach Prime Colorado question. Whichever way you want to take it, what's interesting about them this year?
They're still loaded with talent. People are going to overlook them. You know, they brought 2 quarterbacks to media days. I mean, have you ever covering any media days seen that?
No.
I mean, if a team has a quarterback battle, they don't bring a quarterback to media days. That's how it works. So, you know, as weird as it was that Travis Hunter wasn't at media days last year, it's like, well, I guess it's just Deion. Like, he's just weird. I even asked Caden Salter and Julian Lewis, who's the 5-star from Georgia, that he's 17 years old, a true freshman. Like, why are you guys both here? What's the deal?
Yeah.
And so, like, that's a really interesting dynamic. I mean, you've got Caden Salter, who highly recruited out of Cedar Hill, which is the high school that Joey McGuire coached at. Went to Tennessee, had an issue, and then had to go to Liberty, and blew up. Was a Conference USA Player of the Year in 23, and then was really bad last year. So, which Caden Salter is Colorado getting? And then, you know, you probably look at this and say best case scenario for Colorado is Salter starts, Julian Lewis sits behind him. They have a really good year, and Salter goes and gets drafted in the NFL, and then Julian Lewis takes over. But things never work out the way that they're supposed to or the way that they're foreseen. The other thing is Deion has it out for Florida State. Like, I wish we could have talked to him today, because I'd been like, what do you have against Florida State, bro? Because he just keeps eating their lunch and recruiting. I mean, you know, flipping Travis Hunter. There are plenty of other stories, but the guy is Hakeem Williams, a former 5-star, transfers over. In fact, criticized Travis Hunter for not committing to Florida State and going to Jackson State, and now he ends up in Colorado with Deion. So sort of funny how it worked out. But, again, another Florida State guy that Deion gets to Colorado. It's personal for him with Florida State, obviously. And, again, I mean, Jordan Seaton, left tackle, it's the guy in his second year that was unbelievable as a true freshman at left tackle. So, you know, we talk about the strength of this league. Like, the Big 12 had not gotten 5-stars other than Texas and OU. So you figure, all right, well, it's going to struggle to get 5-stars without Texas and OU. And Colorado's done a good job of trying to get closer and closer to that blue chip ratio, which the Big 12 doesn't have any teams there. And now we see what Texas Tech is doing. They landed a 5-star. There's 2 5-star quarterbacks in the 26th class who have pledges to the Big 12, including the number 1 player in the nation, and Keyshawn Henderson, who's going to Willie Fritz in Houston, and Ryder Lyons, who just committed to BYU, is top 5. So the tide is changing in terms of the talent. And we know, until proven otherwise, you got to have more 4- and 5-star recruits over a 4-year period to win a national title. The blue chip ratio, it's real, and until it's proven wrong, you've got to operate that Big 12 teams are against the 8 ball and trying to win a title until they can continually stack those types of recruiting classes together. And Deion in Colorado is close to that as anybody in the Big 12 right now. So they're very underrated. I think they're going to outperform. I don't think they're going to compete for the Big 12 championship, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did. And I think like their over-under last year was 6.5. I think it's the same this year. And I like the over, but I think a lot of people will bet the under.
Ari Temkin, get him on Twitter at Ari Sports, ARI Sports, Big 12 Radio there on TuneIn. There's a ton I still want to talk to you about, so we'll have to do this again, to be continued. I want to talk about the CFP, the format, all that sort of stuff, rev share, everything. So we'll have to have you back, man, and do it again. But we appreciate the time as always. Thank you.
You're the best, Matt. Thanks for asking, brother. Be well. Take care.
Of course. That's Ari Temkin. It's After Further. Follow him on Twitter if you don't. He's a great follow, and he's great both in football and basketball season as well. So give Ari a follow if you don't. All right, usual do Tigers and the Pros, and we wrap up hour number 2 next.
After Further review.
Get Gordon and get it done. Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. If you've been injured in an accident, it's not your fault. You know what to do. Get Gordon and get it done. Go to getgordon.com. Getgordon.com. The website's a great resource. You see client results, testimonials there of actual clients that Gordon and his team have served and the great work that they've been able to do. You want to get in touch with one of their attorneys at any of the local offices, you can. There's a little text bubble on the homepage. If you, the bottom corner of the homepage, you tap that, you can be texting with someone immediately. If you'd rather call, you know the number, 888-8888, 888-8888. Of course, Gordon's so philanthropic, so involved in the community. I was actually chatting with him yesterday. We're having a convo about Court to Table, the new concept that Gordon's a partner in that they just opened up on Burbank, the pickleball concept. But the bottom line is, like we always say, if you've been injured in an accident, it's not your fault. Don't go it alone. You need representation. You need a local attorney that's going to do right by you and get you what you deserve. You need Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys. So you know what to do. Get Gordon and get it done.
After further review, presented by Goodwood Men's Sexual Wellness. Visit yourgoodwood.com.
Wrapping up hour number 2. Remember, lowest prices, never any contracts. Yourgoodwood.com, yourgoodwood.com. And of course, no matter where you live, they can ship your medicine anywhere in the country. So even if you're outside of Baton Rouge, no worries. If it's hormone replacement therapy, if it's NAD+, if it's BPC 157, any of the many different therapies that they have that are affordable, they get you feeling like your younger self. Yourgoodwood.com, yourgoodwood.com. All right, Muso, Tigers in the pros.
Tigers in the pros. They still bleed purple and gold. They're just really rich now.
Oh, well, this stinks. The New York Yankees today designated DJ LeMahieu for assignment. This comes one day after Aaron Boone declared LeMahieu, quote, a bat off the bench. He's obviously been limited in the field physically after they brought back Jazz Chisholm. LeMahieu went to the bench. They were going to try him out at third, but the range of motion just isn't there. Of course, he just returned this season from a calf strain. There's also been multiple foot and hip injuries for LeMahieu. 36 years old. He's still owed $22 million by the Yankees, so he'll get his money. And it was a really good 7-year tenure, actually, for him in the Bronx. 278, a couple silver sluggers, an all-star appearance, and a gold glove. So really productive 7 years for DJ LeMahieu in the pinstripes, but does come to an end here on Wednesday. I get you an update on some minor league baseball. Sticking with the Yankees, their AAA affiliate. That's where you find Eric Raiselman. He recorded his 6th hold of the season a night ago. Shutout inning of work with a strikeout. Didn't walk anybody. He's having a really solid year. Cade Doty. We haven't heard much from Cade Doty yet this year. Yep. He's still in Double-A with the Fisher Cats. 1 out of 2. It was a double, his 11th of the season. He also drew a couple of walks. So really solid night there for Cade Doty. And finally, Justin Lohr.
Hey.
How about that? Yeah, Justin Lohr is with the Fresno Grizzlies. That is a single-A baseball. His first hold of the season, 2 shutout innings of work with 2 strikeouts a night ago for him. So hats off to Justin Lohr. That's Tigers in the pros.
Presented by Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry, lmfj.com for Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. What a time of year, y'all. Great time of year right now where we're into the summer months. Maybe you're looking forward to the fall. Maybe this is the time where with a little vacation you're thinking of popping the question. Maybe you're starting that process. Just walk into Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. And I want you to know this because a lot of people think, are they going to be real salesy? Are they going to pressure me? If you want to walk in and try on 1,000 rings, walk in and try on 1,000 rings, even if you don't buy something today. They want you to be thrilled, and no matter your budget, they're going to find something that fits for you, that works for you. They understand. We're talking about a lifelong commitment, one of the biggest, most important purchases you'll ever make if you're buying that engagement ring. They want her to be thrilled, you to be the hero, and they want you to have a great experience. That is the Lee Michaels experience. It's Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. Keep mentioning that Baton Rouge Business Report list the top 100 private companies in Baton Rouge. Lee Michaels is on it as well. So congrats to Scott and all the great people over at Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. LMFJ.com. LMFJ.com for Lee Michaels Fine Jewelry. All right, y'all, Sports Center's coming up. Get you caught up on national headlines. We're glad to have you hanging out with us here when we come back. The biggest concern for LSU football in 2025. That's next.
After further review.
Hey, remember the Williamson Eye Center, WilliamsonEye.com, WilliamsonEye.com. Even if you're not a candidate for LASIK or, I don't know, maybe you're scared of the laser. That was something that I had going on for a while. I was a little scared of putting a laser on my eye. Dr. Blake had the conversation with me. The safest elective procedure in the history of mankind is LASIK, by the way. But even if, for whatever reason, if LASIK isn't your jam, they have EVO ICL. That's the implantable contact lens. That's a quote-unquote new procedure for a lot of people, but the Williamson Eye Center has been doing ICL for years now. That's because Dr. Blake is on the forefront in ophthalmology. It's why he travels the world lecturing at conferences and bringing first-of-its-kind technologies and processes and procedures to Baton Rouge. It's why people come from all over the region and the country to see Dr. Blake Williamson, but he's right here for you. WilliamsonEye.com. WilliamsonEye.com.